Hi, Jondi.
Hi there, Nizam. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having me
very,
over today.
thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to interview you. And yes, so friends, here is Jondi Whitis, and let me introduce you. Uh, Jondi is well known for her commitment to practical excellence in EFT. Master trainer Jondi specializes in gentle techniques and powerful results. She empowers clients, students, and mentees with the highest standards of EFT, deep presence, and compassionate intuition. There is a difference. EFT is a protocol. Its application is key to success and ease. In Jaundice's hands, EFT is fully integrated with compassionate truth, deep experiential wisdom, and committed service. Comprehensively trained by early masters and trainers of EFT, she carries on their work in the world with pride and honor. An accredited certified master trainer and trainer of trainers with the world's original, largest, and non-profit EFT association is a statement of her commitment to the highest standards of the work and training. Inspired by the wisdom given to her, she gladly pays it forward as board member of Amet International. Now EFT International, right, Johnny?
Yes, I'm on the training board.
Yes. And welcome once again. And Johnny, you are on EFT International. You are on ACEP. Did you spare any trainings in EFT? I was like, oh
Yes,
my God.
there,
I was going through
there
your
are so
profile.
many out there. There are so many out there. So one who loves to learn, and myself and many other people are lifelong learners. We love to learn, and so I don't think we'll quit anytime soon.
The first time when I started seeing your website, I was like so glued. I was going through all over through your profile, through your books. So let's get started, Johnny. How did you get into EFT?
Ah, I like many other people.
Mhm,
I think you will find a lot of people got to EFT through desperation,
mhm,
right? They had tried many ways to solve their problem and they had not been successful. And so EFT became often it was a choice of last resort. Because they may not have a natural affinity for believing that somehow tapping on your face is going to help them with this problem. And so that's a long way down the list of things they're going to try, right? But after a while, we do get desperate. Gary Craig used to say something like, if people are desperate enough, they will do it naked upside down on their head if you tell them to, because they want it fixed, right? And so I came that way too. My daughter was having some issues. I didn't know what was going on. I tried traditional Western pediatric kinds of work, which weren't working. And so I just, like any other desperate mom, I started looking further and further outside of the traditional Western model. And I eventually found sister kind of protocols like NEAT and MBT, all these abbreviations
yeah.
of different kinds of energy work that
Yes.
were available in the 80s. I found them in, I think, the early 2000s, but I didn't understand what they were. All I knew was to believe in something, you need to feel the truth of it or see the result of it or both. And so even though um, she didn't love those techniques because she was just a child, I did because I could see it and feel the difference. And I knew that there was something very important going on there. And I could see how things could just, that bubble of feeling or upset could just dissolve. So I was very excited about that. And I decided, well, maybe once her problems are resolved. This is for me. And sure enough, I started devoting my life to this.
Okay. So that's how you got into EFT, Johnny,
Hmm.
like, for your daughter. But
Hmm.
initially, no one would just believe EFT just like that. So when did you start believing in EFT that, yes, this really works?
Well, I think I was telling you that, and I think I was telling you the truth when I felt the difference. It wasn't
Okay.
about
Yes,
knowing.
yes,
When I
yes.
felt the difference, that's what I call experiential learning. You
Yes.
feel it. You don't have to believe somebody. And one of
Yes.
the great things about Gary's work is that he built it in with testing, 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 testing. So you don't have to believe somebody. You
Hmm.
don't have to go out the door and go, well, I hope that works. You can feel in the moment many, many things changing, and it reinforces that observation every time somebody goes, well, that was really big, and your face, your whole body is very different right now. What is that like? And they go, oh, you're right. You're right. This is experiential learning, and the uptake is very honest and individuated and irrefutable, because they don't, their friend can go, oh, I can't believe you fell for that. And they can go, no, really, really, I can talk about this. I'm okay. It may not change my life, this one thing, but the fact that a piece of it is so clear to us that it is different is something no one can take from you.
Awesome. Thank you, Johnny. And as you started it for your daughter, then you started believing in EFT. And now, what was the success factor for you to succeed
Mm.
as an EFT practitioner, Johnny?
Well, I think it's a stair-stepped approach. I think you
Yes.
gradually come to feeling successful with it, which might mean confident, right? Um, but over time, you try it yourself and you see results, and then a friend or a neighbor or a colleague, and little by little, you start thinking, I think I can help people.
Okay.
I think I can do this. And so you train yourself based on your results. And if you are excited about that, then you say, well, I have to have more. I want to know more. I want to be even more, and I guess we can say successful. I'm going to say masterful. I feel like, oh, I know how to do this. I can refine it and get better and better at it. Anybody can hammer a nail into some wood and say, yep, it's a table. If you want to make a more beautiful, elegant table, or to feel like I am a fantastic table maker, you're going to keep learning your craft.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Right?
That was amazing example where I could connect it. So, as you said, Johnny, that anyone can hit a nail and call it a table, but to make a beautiful table, it is lot of journey, training, lot of things. So, when one undergoes training, um, how do you see the importance of case study submission? Like, students are asked to work on
Mm.
certain
Yes.
people, and then they are taking supervision and they are getting mentored. So, for practitioners, how do you think is the importance of this case study supervision and all?
It's a great question. It's really important because anybody can read a book,
Yes,
probably, most everybody
most,
can read a
most.
book. Most everybody who has access to the internet can watch a video. They can follow along, right? Most people can do that. Um, but that doesn't speak to capability, right? It might maybe speaks to willingness or openness, right? Or compliance. But when we are teaching, because that's what I do for a living, I'm a teacher and a mentor, a trainer and a mentor. And so most of us who do this have a large amount of learning that we learn from other people that we respect or have something to teach us. And then we practice this. This is just, you know, education itself, probably, or good education. We practice it, and then we see where we've gone wrong, or we see where we could improve, or we see where we haven't got everything in quite the right sequence or order for, ah, right? I would rather use that satisfaction word of than any head trip word, because that's in the eye of the beholder. It's your subjective experience. I am good. I am lousy. I need work. That's yours, right? So one of the things that we do, I work on the training board at EFT International, and one of the things we do is we try to constantly craft a better, richer, deeper training experience for people. And then we reinforce it with those people who want to know more and feel, capability. We ask them to do a process we call the mentoring for certification process. And the reason for that is to study with someone who's very passionate about teaching, with someone who's passionate to know. And together we create a hyper passionate learning environment. And part of that mentoring is to say, okay, I want you to practice what I've taught you with someone, and I want you to come back to me and let's discuss. And one of the ways to do that is called case studies. And case studies are only a teaching tool. Nobody cares if they get published. They're not for a book. They're for you, the student, to be able to look at what you've done in a linear fashion and then discuss it with someone who really cares to help you get it right. And so together you deconstruct this, and you have questions that are not forensic, they're not judgmental, they are lovingly put to the person with kindness and curiosity and compassion. Hey, do you see that they didn't really answer your question here? What do you think about what they said to you instead? What might you do now that you have some distance and you are looking at this anew? Again, what might you choose differently and why? Now, this is problem solving. It allows them in a safe environment to consider all the options, because the beauty of EFT is its elegant simplicity inside of vast flexibility, right? I call this customized to the customer,
Okay, that's
right? And so you take simple tools that are so powerful and you harness it to the flexible, client-centric approach. And then you bolster that, you hold up all that by studying with good people who will help you self-reflect, who will help you see there's other ways to get there that may be better choices. So next time they feel even more confident, because now they have more tools, now they have more understanding, now they have more confidence. And that's what case studies are for.
okay. And supervision also, could you please explain more like on a why
Sure.
EFT International emphasizes on continuous supervision at least for 6 hours?
Actually, yeah, and I'm glad you asked that question, because supervision is not the right word to use.
Okay.
One of the people that had inserted that into the language
Okay.
of AMET did so because they were a therapist. They had therapeutic background, but supervision in the United States is only used for licensed professionals, and EFT, you know, is open to everybody. So licensed professionals, as part of their state board licensure, they will sit so often with a supervisor And that supervisor has a role of telling them what's wrong or what they should do differently. And so we use the larger term mentoring
mentor.
relationship instead of supervision. And also, it's more like the emotional components of what I showed you a minute ago. It's about helping them come to a deeper understanding for themselves about human nature and the human condition. It's not about going, Nizam, you didn't do this, and I notice you didn't do step 3, and you have to go back and do that again. And that typically is what, it's not fair to supervisors everywhere to say that, but it is typically the emotional impact of I have to sit and I have to take supervision now. You know, I have to listen to what they have to say that I did wrong. That is a very common sort of emotional impact. So at EFTI, we don't want any of that. We want to give you the safety and support, not this draconian overseer.
Okay, thank you. So that's where regular mentoring will help practitioners also to hone their skills, and
Yes,
they can be a good CFT practitioner.
absolutely. So let me say one thing before we move on. Mentoring at EFTI is actually um, sort of two things. One is mentoring for certification. This is when you leave class before you get certified to use EFT professionally. So that's typically a period of anywhere from 6 to 12 months of time that you spend in small groups or one-to-one, which is mostly what I do. Okay, but after certification, mentoring is very important to EFTI. They take it very seriously, and you have a minimum of 6 hours per year that everybody from me to a brand new student, everybody is obligated to keep themselves growing and evolving and becoming more capable by taking I got your word now, supervision, mentoring from people that are further up the educational ladder than you are, because otherwise it's kind of pointless. So the idea is we keep evolving by seeking out good mentorship.
Okay, and so you mean, though you are a
Yes,
trainer,
I do.
master trainer, trainer of trainers as well, also, even you are of no exception. You are also going through mentoring every year.
Every year, and about
Amazing.
12 hours for me. I don't ever pay attention to minimums.
Okay, okay, that's awesome.
Mhm.
And so, Jonty, you have some design and develop some special courses. So,
Ah, yes.
can we? Could you please tell about your emotional first aid program? That was like it caught my attention. I wanted to know more about. Okay, first aid we all
Good.
know, but what is this emotional first aid?
Good. Okay, great. Well, I'm glad. It is an umbrella term. It is a big picture term
Hmm,
within energy psychology, which, you know, we need a better name. We really do. Energy medicine and energy psychology, they belong to certain worlds, but we need a big energy, energy healing, maybe energy wellness. How about that? Energy wellness. We need a
yes.
big new umbrella. But
True.
underneath that, we have the most popular kind of that by number is EFT tapping. But EFT tapping is not all tapping. EFT
Yes.
is always tapping, but not all tapping is EFT, right?
Okay.
There's many adaptations that are
Yes.
tapping, but not EFT.
Hmm,
So, in that same way, emotional first aid is not one thing, it is an approach, right? And so, the way that I teach emotional first aid and my book on that is different than somebody else's. That doesn't make theirs wrong. It means that, mine is specific. But what do we mean by that? Emotional first aid is designed to ride alongside of emotional freedom techniques because we cannot always tap with EFT when we're in trouble, especially in the moment. Or if we're in trouble in the moment in public, most people are quite reluctant to go, well, let's see, how do I set that? Even though I am being chased by bulls in Spain, and that is very scary. I'm, of course, being silly, but it's it's not the time to start pulling together setup statements and using your words, because this part of us, the prefrontal cortex, goes offline. We flip our lid very easily as humans when we are afraid or threatened, right? Or overwhelmed. And so this is the time when we use what I call tapping adaptations, little tiny adaptations that are strategic interventions that help your nervous system and your limbic system get back on track, grounded, and back to a resourceful state. And now you can use this. Now you can go, wow, I can't believe that happened. That was so scary, and I can still feel it. Now I can tap with words because I have access to them. But emotional first aid is when you do not. As soon as you become threatened or upset, your blood supply, your oxygenated blood supply cuts up. Over 60% of your blood is squeezed down and redirected to your muscles. So that means you are deprived of oxygenated blood here. You are at a very small portion of your capability. So you need to honor that by saying, okay, now's not the time to talk to this part. Now's the time to talk to my body and my nervous system. And so what we would do are very tiny little, as I said, adaptations. For instance, what we know is as we squeeze off the blood, oxygenated blood, we also feel our, what do we call this, diaphragm sort of freeze up, right? Which is a curious kind of thing, but it's normal. We start breathing here instead of full breath. We start breathing here, right? It's just part of our biology. And so we honor that. And one of the things that I will say is I call this thump on the chest the oh my gosh point, right? And in doing, we open our diaphragm to taking in a lot of air,
Yeah.
right? Which immediately helps us start being grounded. Wow. I mean, that is a silly conversational way to self-treat with emotional first aid so that I can get to a place where I can decide what is a smart thing to do right now. Okay, so my mission was to teach more children. This is how you're made. This is what you do. And if you learn this right now, you will be good to go for your whole life. You will know how to feel very quickly back in control and be able to get to a resourceful state of problem solving. And that's you, and you own that. And I want to give you that knowledge, and I want to help you own and take responsibility for I can take care of me. Oh my gosh, such a difference, because children go through an incredible amount of things that we don't even know about as adults. We can remember, especially if we had a difficult childhood, but here's a good place to say 30 years later, a giant insurance survey and clinical study in the United States. 30 years later, we're just starting to get it. Oh, oh. The more negative things, negative being a function, functional emotional word, but the more disruptions and troubles that you have had in your childhood, by the age of 40, your health profile is going to reflect the number of those that are unresolved. Now, I probably didn't say that very well, but what it means is the insurance study looked at health outcomes that they could expect from people who had a number of life disruptions as a child. They cover about 10 different areas. It's called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. ACEs. Okay. And what we are now harnessing to is the idea that most of us have had adverse childhood experiences, and most of us carry them, but we haven't resolved them. And most of us can expect psychosomatic type of symptoms that gradually become just biological fact. We have organ breakdown, right? We have most of our diseases are born of inflammation. Inflammation is what happens when you are highly stressed all the time and you do not have a way to manage it or offload that stress. So that means you're basically marinating in cortisol, in body hormone chemicals all the time, which causes organ breakdown and inflammation, which is underneath almost every disease we have, right? So these things work hand in hand. EFT works to resolve obstacles and felt sense states and limiting beliefs, right?
Yes.
That we have inherited or we have learned or both. Emotional first aid is about in the moment. Right here, right now, I need to be saving myself. I need to make smart decisions. And then when I am safe, when I am grounded and neutralized, then I can take care of whatever else has come up, what Gary Craig used to call times when, right? Oh, this feeling, once resolved, when I go back and think about it and I'm safe, I go, you know, this feeling was just like that feeling in 1982. Oh, that is where EFT comes in. Ah, now I can treat it because I am grounded and safe. I have enough oxygenated blood. My brain is back online. Dan Siegel makes a model called Flipping the Lid, and it's a really wonderful hand model of the brain to understand. But as soon as we come back into competence and resourcefulness, our prefrontal cortex is available again.
That's
Long answer,
amazing.
but I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, I think it's not just first aid, it is much, much more than that.
Well, at least it's aid that you give yourself first.
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep, yep.
that's
So
amazing.
I have a book that I wrote called Compassion in Action: Emotional First Aid for Children, and it's about how to help quickly in troubling times. And 2 years ago, my co-writer, Deborah Miller, PhD, down in Oaxaca, Mexico, who is a child and family advocate at a pediatric oncology hospital, she started out life as a cellular biologist. So she has the different side than I do. But together, we wanted to write this 2 years ago in response to natural disasters and man made disasters like shootings that were happening every week. And we thought, oh my gosh, you know, if 30 years ago, 64% of Americans had at least one adverse circumstance in their childhood that's unresolved, well, my gosh, it's getting worse and worse. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. So I think we could safely say 100% of us have some adverse childhood experience that remains unresolved. What does that mean for our health and well-being? Not good. What does that mean for our children and the future of the planet with the people who are going to run it? Not good. So 2 years ago, we started writing this book, having no idea we would be releasing it just as pandemic hit. Really good timing, divine timing, always somehow working out. I know that's a silly thing to say. Um, But what we've done is we've placed it on Amazon. We made it cheap enough so that everybody could buy several copies, because our mission is to
Yes.
reach at least 1 million children by the end of the year. And to do that, we're starting with people who are naturally disposed to listen to us, like people who work in energy psychology or energy medicine, right? Because they understand. But it's not any, there's nothing woo woo, as people have said, about it. It's very biologically strategic interventions for everyday use. And so the first section is actually how to help yourself, because teacher has to be grounded
Yes.
and in
Yes.
control, right? First section, can anybody could read. Second section has to do with teaching children specifically. You have to meet them where they are in a way that makes that feel safe and accessible. And so we describe that developmentally, how to reach them and what to do. And the third section is about how to teach others how to help children learn these things. And so we have charts and examples and drawings, and you can take it out, you can Xerox it, you can laminate it, so that you have a handy dandy field guide, right? It's a handbook. And Deborah and I are actually working on a larger modular online course, but this is the book that everybody can say, okay, here's one for my library, one for my hospital, my children's hospital especially. Here's one for the police department, one for the emergency services, one for the school system, one for the daycare, one for the nurses, right? Caregivers of all kinds, social services, children's services. If we can help everybody learn how to help the kids, their life is going to be so much better, because now they know how to take care of themselves in the moment. So this is why I want everyone to please go see the book, find a copy of the book, buy several copies, spread the book, because this is
Yes.
how I think we create the future we want to see for our children.
Amazing. That's excellent initiative, Jondi, because teachers themselves are so stressful, and they might, get huge benefited by this, hugely benefited. So thanks for that.
Absolutely. And, you know, children are natural teachers. So if
Yes.
you teach your child, they're going to teach a younger child. If you teach a school of children, they're going to teach their peers, right? If you show them by the fact that you're a teacher or a caregiver or a parent, if you say, this is what we call normalizing, right? Oh, this is what I do to feel better fast. Let me show you too. That's it. That's the whole preamble to learning. It means I do it, it's successful. I'd like you to try it and find out if it helps you too. There's no more compelling reason than that. And once a child trusts you, if they trust you and you have some connection or bond with them, and let's just say it's your auntie. Your aunt says, "Oh, let me show you. Let me show you what I do. This is really good. I think you will like it too." You're going to go, "Oh, well, that's cool. I had no idea until Auntie showed me how to do that." And the very next thing you're going to do is, next time you're in trouble, you're going to go, "Well, she showed me to do this." And they're going to do this. And they're going to see that it works. And then they're going to show somebody else. This is how it works.
That's awesome, Jondi, and a great initiative indeed.
I am premature in saying this, I know, but my friend Pooja, who lives in Chennai, she is probably going to be helping me to translate into Hindi.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'm hopeful.
And John Day, you spoke about book, but there is an exclusive course also, EFT for children.
Um, yes, I actually already have a course that it's all these courses were in person, because
Mhm.
EFT International always valued in-person training as the safest, most thorough, right? But during pandemic, we've had to try to work out a way so that people can still get services and learn. And so I have not yet put this as an online course, but I have one called Creative Tapping Techniques for Children.
Mhm.
okay, which is more than just EFT, but it's all the things that I have learned, and then I point them at how they might be applied to children and their issues. Um, I also have this emotional first aid course that I'm talking about with Deborah Miller
Yes.
that will be online. I am still teaching foundational EFT and advanced EFT, and I'm starting to do those online as well. And then I have a couple of resource books that I have for people who you don't necessarily have to be an EFT practitioner to make use of them. And one is about learning to ask kind, compassionate, curious questions. It's called How to Be a Great Detective. And the
Yes.
other
Amazing
is
book.
about groups. Oh, I'm glad you like it. And the other is about how to facilitate groups, because right now I'm actually in the middle of revising that groups book to become a workbook that
Mhm.
has a three-part online in-person course that I'm trying to put together, because right now we're all trying to help, but we can't always get out to help.
Mhm.
So we need to learn about facilitating groups, whether they're in person, because you can, this socially distance properly, I can do it, or online. So it's another of my missions
Yes.
to
Yeah.
teach people how to better facilitate a group and keep people safe in a group.
Wow. And there is this course which caught my attention, Johnny.
Yeah.
Ethical self-care and tapping for caregivers.
Hmm.
Could you
Yes.
please tell about that? Ethics is very, very important. And
I agree with you. Well, I as part of some of the training that I have done to different groups, including teachers, I try to help them learn how to take care of one another with self care, right? So we all know EFT was designed for self care first.
yes,
Second, it was perfect for peer to peer care. And third, it was really great for one on one therapeutic care. But it was always all those things. But self care was always the biggie, as Gary would say. That's what he gave his money and his life to doing, is for self care to the world, right? And so I took the number two, the peer to peer care part, and I do a tapping practicum with different groups. I customize it to their need, but I teach them how to serve each other without getting into the details, so that they have a fast, it's like emotional first aid in one sense, in that it's a strategy and an intervention for what is happening right now. But yet it can easily be used in the therapeutic model, but perhaps there's a lot of different dynamics in relationships where I might not want to tell you everything that's going on, or who did what to who, or get into the blame and shame game, because I can keep you out of that. I call it out of the weeds, on the path, out of the weeds, by showing you how to do these little bits of tapping in a way that involves privacy and rapidity, or a really quick feel better fast, by holding the space. We call that holding the space, just having presence and intention to help that person in this moment, so all your stuff gets pushed aside and you're present to that one person, holding that space for them. And then I teach these very brief sort of tapping interventions so that caregivers can get their needs met. Right now, there's a human tsunami of need that's going to be coming out of all this isolation, all this disruption, all this loss, grief, uncertainty. And we don't have enough caregivers to take care of that kind of wave. And so now is the time for us to learn how to do that in EP, because we can give it as a diaspora to many, many people online, or where we are in our socially distanced village or community. So what I'm trying to tell you, I'm sorry I'm being long-winded, but it's basically about holding the space and brief tapping intervention which is sort of a cross between emotional first aid and classic EFT tapping, right? But it's really about peer-to-peer care in the moment.
And maybe this is your last course in the list, Jondi, tapping intensive practice days, because I've seen people are certified from different organizations or certified
Right,
bodies, but when
right.
it comes to practice, like
Mhm.
it's still a question mark. Some feel not so confident, and the
Sure.
staffing intensive practice does, is it open only for EFT international students or anyone else?
Well, that's a great question because it really doesn't have anything to do with what you learned from who.
Okay.
My tapping intensives are actually copied after Linda Woods,
Mhm.
who was in the EFT master program when Gary got sick. And so she did not get the moniker, but she was there. She had done all the work. And so I consider her to be an EFT master as well. And Linda is an American from the Midwest who is married to an Englishman, and so she lived in England for a long time. She's back in the United States now, but she used to do this thing called intensives or half days. And so they were one-to-one therapeutic half days where a person would spend the morning or the afternoon in her company. And so they would ride the intensities and things that were coming up, and that made perfect sense to me that you could set aside time for just one person and helping them really get a lot done, not, an hour, but a half day or a whole day with them. Of course, you take, comfort breaks and you might eat or take tea or whatever you're going to do. But the idea is the two of you have deliberately set aside this time to make a big impact on something that you're really desiring transformational change on. And so, in that, giving it the time that it deserves in the company of somebody who is also passionately interested in helping you get that, that's what that is.
Wow, that's awesome. So I think we have covered almost everything, right? From how
Well,
you got
can
into
I offer you
EFT.
one more thing?
Yeah, please, 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 please.
I'm going to offer you this. If you are passionate about EFT and you are passionate about what I call practical excellence, and the satisfaction that brings you, you might want to check out eftguild.org.
Yeah.
eftguild.org. It is it's a group of people who only have that in mind. They want practical excellence evolving as really becoming excellent, right? But it also has personal support,
Wow.
warm, safe, personal support. So the relationships that are forged there are very important to helping you feel confident about continuing to evolve and grow and ask questions and get help when you need it and be held in community safely. So EFTguild.org has some amazing archives and benefits, and it's very inexpensive as well. So it's the best deal in town.
Thank you. Thanks about that, Johnny.
Mhm.
I'm sure people who are watching this are getting great benefits and to get to know you about your books. Books are friends, like they're gold. I can say they're just amazing. And yeah, that's awesome. So thanks a
Thank you.
lot,
You're so
Johnny,
welcome.
for answering all these questions and helping to understand different aspects of EFT.
Sure.
To especially for practitioners, this interview
Mhm.
is going to be very, very helpful. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks a lot once again.
my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.